So a lot of the times in these companies, they don't realize they have a soil problem. They come to us and say, yes, I've got XYZ site. Nothing's growing. We're doing everything we can. We're even pumping conventional FERT into it, and it's just not working.
You're listening to How I Grow This, exploring stories of gardeners from across the globe as we learn from their biggest tips and tricks to some of the things not to do. I'm your host, Luke Hammond. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the How I Grow This podcast. I'm your host, Luke Hammond, and I am joined with one of my northern friends, somebody in the far, bitter cold regions of Canada, my friend Lee Martineau. Is that how you pronounce your last name?
Yep, Lee Martineau. Yeah, you
Martineau,
got it.
I see all the extra letters in there, and I, kind of mess up.
It should just be an O.
Yeah, Martineau, right?
Yeah.
It's probably because I'm at like a third grade level. But anyway, Lee is very, very into all things healthy soil and what that looks like from all across the board. Lee owns multiple different companies, one for small home and garden, and one that actually helps reclaim soils that have been damaged at various levels, whether that be through mining operations or oil spills. It's a soil reclamation process in which his company goes and helps restore soils. He's also an incredible grower in the bitter reaches where it is mostly cold. And we have all this where we juxtapose my temps versus his temps as we text back and forth. And he's like, hey, it's negative 50 here. And I'm like, hey, it's sunny and 75 in Arizona. So it's been a lot of fun. So Lee, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thanks for having me. I appreciate it, man.
So I want to dive into your story and your context. One of the things we do in the How I Grow This podcast is really break down different people's growing climates and contexts. Growing zones is kind of nebulous. It helps us get a framework, but talk to me about your temperatures, your first frost, your last frost, how extreme it gets in kind of your geographic part of the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, from a hardiness zone, I'm not sure if you use the hardiness zone scale in America, but in Canada, there's the hardiness zone, and it runs from, zone 1, which is the Arctic, to zone, I think, 11, which is you can grow fruit trees. We always say that we grow in zone 1.9, is basically what it boils down to. As far as when our last frost and our first frost is, that doesn't make any difference. We've had frost in every single month of this calendar year. We had killing frost on July 22nd of this year. We had frost August long weekend. We had frost in September. It was minus 11 degrees Celsius, which is something in Fahrenheit, by the middle of September. So we grow in a place that is not beneficial for growing most things. But with that, we have learned how to grow in it. And I think that that's kind of the fun part of growing, is that you get to find ways to grow the things that you want to grow. Now, whether that's you put it in a tunnel house or in a hoop house, or you just realize that you're not going to grow bananas, like it's just not going to happen. We grow a lot of garlic, we grow a lot of root vegetables, a lot of stuff that isn't really harmed by the frost. So yeah, we don't have a lot of pests because it's so cold, but we've got snow in July.
Wow. It just is so different than anything I'm used to. And so I don't even know where to begin. I'd like to start at garlic.
Sure.
I'm assuming you're growing a hardneck garlic variety.
Correct.
And choosing, is there a specific cultivar that you're choosing for this kind of region?
Well, we didn't really choose it for the cultivar. When we first started getting into garlic, we basically we had two options. We had Russian red and music, and we were like, we'll take 100 pounds of both. And so we started with 100 pounds of each, and then cracked the bulbs by hand. And then we have a super high-tech piece of plywood where we cut the holes into it and then just poke everything down with a broom handle. And then our whole intention was to start selling the garlic once we harvested it. Got pretty busy, so we harvested everything and cured it, and then had no time to build the market, so we just planted everything back in. And now we are 4 years strong on doing that. And garlic is quite aggressive in how it multiplies. Multiplies by 4 or 5 times every year. So now we planted this fall just shy of 10,000 cloves. And we keep saying that we're going to get all of the machinery needed in order to do this, but unfortunately, we're still hand cracking bulbs and hand planting everything. So it takes about 2 weeks for us to put everything in. Further to that, we don't till. We don't ever till. So what we do is we just take one of our big things on our farm is compost, and so we put about 25 cubic yards of compost over top of our rows, and then we plant into that. So it's difficult. It's a lot of work. Eventually, we'll probably open up a market for it, Luke. I think it's you get so busy, but then by the time that you're supposed to be building your market for the garlic, it's like, well, it's too late. Let's put it back in the ground and figure it out. So that's our garlic situation. Kind of a nightmare, but it's a good nightmare.
It's been a giant hobby passion, growing more and more garlic every year, with maybe always using the phrase "next year we will."
Correct. And the other part too is it has forced us to do things a little differently. Like, I mean, think about how many scapes you end up with, right? You end up with 10,000
scapes, yeah.
So what we've done in the past little while is we've been dehydrating them, and then we will hammer mill them, and then we pelletize them mixed with some vitamins, some alfalfa meal, a little bit of salt, and we feed them to the cows because it stops the black flies from hitting them, right? Because if you think about when you eat garlic, you really start to sweat out that. It smells terrible, but black flies don't like it. The cows love it, and it's led to really healthy cows. We were going to feed it to the pigs, found out that causes really kind of rancid tasting pork, so we avoided that. But so it's all a learning process. Growing up here, it's just all learning. It's all just trying to find ways to utilize everything.
So as I keep thinking about this cold climate and the transitioning of how you're feeding enough for cattle and growing enough grass, what does your growing season look like for just pasture wise and then daylight hours? I'm assuming it's like nearly 22 hours of daylight through the majority of the summer. Or is it 20 hours?
We're not that high up. We're considered southern Alberta, south kind of western Alberta. So 18 hours is kind of the top end, right around that spring equinox. So it's long days, which is awesome, right? It's nothing better than being out in the garden or out in the field at 10:30 at night and it's still light out. I love it. But we still do get 18 to 20 hours sunlight a day. As far as growing season from a pasture perspective, in our pastures we fall seed. We will drill everything in the fall, late September, early October. The soil is usually cool enough at that point that nothing will germinate, and we try to plant as diverse as possible of a cover crop. We grow a lot of cover crops, is what you would consider a cover crop. We drill it all with a no-till drill using a 1972 tractor. It's pretty funny, but it grows really well, and cows love it. And when you do it on a rotational type grazing schedule, our field has developed. I think we have quadrupled the organic matter content. I think we have quadrupled the EC of our field. We are growing on a river valley that had, an inch, maybe less topsoil, and then it was just a gravel bar underneath. So being able to, increase what we're growing into every year makes the seeding actually easier than it has been in the past, because you're able to tow something through that soil profile much easier. So yeah, as much as we live in the coldest place on planet Earth, we grow things that will grow in the coldest place on planet Earth. And for cows, that means that we have to feed cows, you know, November 1st through May 1st. So you have to bale feed for the majority of the year.
Mm-hmm. So what is you? I mean, if you're feeding that many days out of the year, what? Uh, how much ground does that take, and how much are you baling through the summer months in order to make that happen?
It all depends on the field. So,
Mm-hmm.
we aim for, 2.5 bales an acre, sometimes more if we can. And it takes a fair amount. Our family runs about 90 cow calf pairs, and it's a lot of hay. Like, it's
Yeah.
hundreds of bales a year, right? And you don't get to store it all inside, and it all has to be stored outside, and you hay tarp it as best you can. But unfortunately, the wind picks up, and then your hay tarp is in the field, and it's a struggle, but you find a way to make it work. It's a lot of guys out here will feed silage as well, like silage
Mhm.
bales, and we just don't have the wrapper for it. A lot of our friends do, though.
Well, let's jump back into the garden. You talked a lot about root crops. I'm assuming a lot of carrots and beets and turnips and uh, y- parsnips. Maybe is that kind of where you're?
Potatoes. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
potatoes.
what potato cultivar are you guys choosing?
Uh, just I don't know what my wife planted this year. She's the potato gal.
Hmm.
Um, red potatoes. I'm not sure what the variety is. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah,
Uh,
no worries.
carrots is my jam. I mean, I love carrots more than anything in the entire world. Boleros. It's my go-to. I really like a big, round, thick a bolero carrot. It's kind of my jam. Beets, uh, just bull's blood beets. That's one that we grow quite heavily.
Hmm.
And then the other kind of plants that we grow a lot of tomatoes. Steph grows a lot of tomatoes in our little hoop house that we have. Um, as far as what varieties, I'm not a variety guy on tomatoes because I think they should be banned. I'm not a huge tomato guy. I think that they take up a lot of precious space. I think that
Hmm.
I think that we should just grow melons instead. But still, last year in our hoop house we grew about 9 different varieties of melons, and we got them through to the end where they were still a little bitter, but you could eat them. The chickens loved them.
Gotcha. So you're growing melons and you're growing tomatoes in a hoop house. What does that look like in terms of you're getting frosts all the way through? You know,
Yep,
your
100%.
temperatures are all over the place. So you're closing it up. You're trying to capture as much of the heat as you can by closing it up in the evenings. Um, do you even have to vent
So
up
we do
there?
in the day. Yes, yeah, during the day we do. If we forget to lift the walls up in the morning, it's nightmare fuel. It's a
It
total
gets hot
rainforest
just
in
like
there.
it does here. Yeah.
Very hot,
Yep.
extremely hot. So yes, we have to drop the walls and just try and protect it as much as possible. Midsummer, like when we had a frost in July 22nd, when we had a frost, there's so much greenery in there that it does protect it. So when you drop the walls, it's comfortable in there. You're not getting to that -3, -4. You're
Hmm.
still keeping it at 5 degrees, 6 degrees. So they do survive. There's the odd plant that will not love it. Like the squashes don't love it, and they're always right next to the door. And so the odd time you have to cut a few leaves off, and it's just what happens. It's just what it is, right?
Right.
The way that I always look at it, though, is whatever we lose in the garden to frosts, it's just adding to the compost pile that we're going to add in the fall. If we
Hmm.
lose a bunch of plants in July, that means that all those plants are going to go to feed that garden come the fall when we put compost in.
Hmm. Well, I think it's a very fascinating thing because the crops that you talked about, I've got bolero carrots in, and I'm down here in Arizona. Like
Crazy.
I'm harvesting bolero carrots like this week, and we're just harvesting them through. I grow bull's blood. I grow tomatoes. I have to vent my tunnels, so everything um, that the practices are almost very similar from what you're describing, with the nuances is what I'm trying to figure out and kind of like trickle through of what kind of nuances there might be. Um, Talk a little bit about irrigation and
Sure.
how you irrigate, because when you have those permafrost and cold like winters, that water table rises and you don't really lose moisture. Is that true of the majority of the summer?
So it is in most places. In our place, it's much different because we are growing on a gravel bar. We're growing on the riverbed.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a crazy high level of infiltration rate. So it can rain
Mm-hmm.
and rain and rain, and it will just permeate through the gravel bar into the water
Mm-hmm.
table
Mm-hmm.
and out. So in our garden, because it's just years and years of compost buildup, we've amended so far down now that we have the ability to hold a ton of water instead of having it leave.
Mm-hmm.
So our irrigation, we use drip. We just
Mm-hmm.
use quarter-inch drip, and we water. In the beginning, we water once a day, 4 o'clock in the morning. Uh, Towards the middle of the summer, we turn it down to once every 3 days. We put it on for half an hour. We try to just water as little as possible. We're in a really bad drought up here, so it's everything is really dry, including our well, and we do water off of our well. We could pull out of the river, but there's a lot of regulation that goes on about temporary draw licensing. So instead of just going through it, we just use it off of our well. Um, but you start to irrigate a large garden from your well, and
Mm-hmm.
it can get pretty touch and go pretty quick as far as if you're going to be able to have a shower in the morning.
Mm.
Um, so that's just kind of how it goes. But again, once August rolls around and it starts to get cooler nights and we get a ton of dew, like a lot of that dew starts to be in the air, we can almost turn our irrigation right off because there's
Mm-hmm.
so much water stored in our soil, in that
Mm-hmm.
composted soil, that you can get away with it. And then um, in September, before we harvest, we'll turn the taps back on a little bit, just kind of to make it a little bit easier to pull the carrots out of the ground, and it's not such kind of hard, clumpy, dry soil on the
Mm.
top. So yeah, irrigating is a big deal for us. Without it, now that said, I still can't get over the underlying urge that we all have to go sit in the garden with either a watering can or my hose and just hang out with my plants, right? Like I think we all do it. I think we all, whether we have the drip irrigation or not, I just kind of want to go down there. I want to see what's going on. I want to feel the soil. I want to dig down a little bit. I want to know what that moisture level is like. So I still do that every day as well.
Hmm. Hmm. All right. It sounds like just a cold Arizona to me.
Yep, Flagstaff.
It's just a cold like Flagstaff, Arizona, high elevation. Like,
Sure,
yeah, no, it's
exactly. That's what it is. It really,
hmm,
and that's what it is. It's you guys get 11 alfalfa crops. We get one down
right,
south,
right.
right? It's just the nuance of the difference between growing where you're growing and where I'm growing is it's very rushed for me. The seeds
Mm-hmm.
aren't in the ground early to catch that window of time as soon as that soil warms up so they can germinate. Then you're behind. So if you're not in the ground by May long weekend, you're behind.
Mm,
And with the tomatoes, the onions, um, the peppers, anything of that regard, like we have to start everything inside, and we start them inside. You know, April 1st is when we really start getting things going. Our onions, I like to put in trays sometime early January because I like to grow big onions. Um, and then it's just transplant out as soon as it's warm enough they can deal with it.
mm. In terms of onion selection, you're using long day onions.
Yes.
What are your favorite onions for a long day for that
Um,
region?
the onion, why can't I think of the name? Alyssa Craig exhibition onions. It's my favorite onion in the whole wide world to grow. So it was an onion, from my understanding, that was developed to grow like competition grade
Mm,
giant onions. Um, And I don't know, I get a kick out of growing massive vegetables for some reason. Sometimes they're not, much to my wife's chagrin as I roll into the kitchen with a 3 pound onion, but I think they're hilarious to grow.
Yep.
Um, and if you start them early enough, like I started them in December one year and they're just gigantic by the time we pulled them out of the ground. Something about that ego of mine that you just holding huge onions up on Instagram being like, look at these things. Um,
Yeah.
but we grew last year. It was funny, Luke. I went to the local garden center June 15th and they had their like annual vegetable sale where they're just trying to blow out all of their plants.
Mm-hmm.
And I bought like so many onions, and there
Mm-hmm.
were yellow onions and red onions. They didn't even have the tags in them anymore. And I planted them out, and we filled a 60-foot long row of onions that I bought for $5, and they all became really great onions.
Mm.
And then it frosted, and it frosted hard for like 3 days. And we thought they would survive pretty good, but man, when we pulled them out of the ground, a whole 60-foot row of onions all squishy. The
They
whole thing
rot. They
gone
rot in that core.
immediately, and it was horrendous. It was a terrible day. You pull it all out of the garden, and you're like, thought we were gonna win, but we
Yeah.
didn't.
Yeah. I had a group of onions in Missouri where right during that harvest window, it didn't frost, but I think a 7 in a 14-day window, we had 14 inches of rain.
Oh my God.
And so the cores just ended up all rotting, and half of them were good, but it was just in the storage life.
Yeah.
My storage life just went to a month, and so it
Yeah,
just
no,
didn't.
and ours, like when we put them on the racks, I was like, I mean, you hope that they'll maybe dry out a little bit, and you go
Hmm.
back in there 5 days later and you just start squeezing, and you're like,
Yeah.
compost, compost, compost.
Yep.
Kind of good, cook it today, compost, compost.
Yep.
So there's no storage life whatsoever. Same thing with the some of the beets as well. We found that,
Mm.
see, we had this year was really cool, kind of neat. We had a ton of rain in June and July. Like, no, it was 10 above Celsius, of course, 10 above for the whole month of July and the whole month of June. And then it just stopped raining. And you would
Mm.
expect that all the ponds and dugouts would be full, but I mean, everything's empty again. But it was a really hard growing season because of that. We just had so much rain and then none. And
Hmm.
when you have two extremes like that, it creates undesirable growing conditions for no matter what you're growing. Even our garlic crop suffered as a result of it.
Hmm.
A lot less uh, uh, sizable bulbs. Kind of is what it is. You just kind of go with it, right?
Yeah. All right. I want to pivot the conversation. We've got this context down, and we're understanding the similarities, we're understanding the differences, and I think people are probably getting that. You are better known for something completely other than gardening, and that is soil health and soil reclamation, and specifically pellets. Tell me your story leading into the company Tierra Paretta, the pellets that you manufacture and create, and kind of your journey therein. Um, as it, as it,
Yeah,
yeah, pellets.
it's an
Why
interesting.
pellets?
Yeah, it's an interesting story. I up until about 5 years ago, I had no desire to even care about the soil, let alone be in the industry of soil health. Um, During that wonderful time of COVID, my wife and I moved to our family farm where we live now. And the family farm was never a farm; it was an acreage that was surrounded by acres of land that was never used. And while I was there, I was laid off from my job, and I had time to listen for the first time in my life. And that listening and the ability to listen to like what you want to do with your life and just kind of hear what the universe has to say led me to look down. And I looked at the soil and said, I want to grow in this. I want to figure out how to grow from this and grow as a human. So through a multitude of different things, my wife and I, essentially after we first planted our garden, we started a company called Doug Gardens, Doug, Doug Gardens. And Doug was originally a company that delivered regenerative garden kits to people in the city. The garden kits, we built everything in house. They came with a cedar raised bed that went together in 5 minutes or less. Um, and it came with a box of soil, compost, straw, a drip irrigation system, and straw pellet mulch. Mulch being the most important part of the garden, we thought we were onto something using straw pellets because it's a wonderful byproduct of the agricultural industry. And pellets were great because you could ship a bunch of them in a small package, and then when they're wetted, they expand. Through business, business is hard. So the shipping soil is very hard. It's very expensive. It's very labor intensive. Um, and we had a couple of, I wouldn't call them failures, but I would call them more concerns from clients that were talking about how the straw pellets seem to help hold the water in, but they also seem to help stop the carrot seeds from germinating. So my wife and I, not knowing much at that point, we just assumed that it had to have happened because the straw had been desiccated prior to being cut. So we thought we were introducing glyphosate into these essentially organic gardens. So we went to our straw pellet manufacturer and asked them to make straw pellets using organic straw, and they laughed at us. They're conventional agriculturalists in Alberta. So having no choice, we were either kind of like, well, we either get rid of the mulch, we find a different mulch, or why don't we go buy our own pellet mill and buy a building and let's maybe look at mulch because it's way more scalable. When the pellet mill arrived, I had a number of ingredients lined up, all kind of regenerative again, soil health, soil fertilizers, and I just started mixing in a 5-gallon pail and mixing different ingredients. The things like biochar and fish bone meal and feather meal and bone ash and insect frass and alfalfa meal and canola meal and all these kind of wonderful things. And then I just tested everything. And then once I realized that we were building holistic soil fertilizer, we pivoted. And now Doug Gardens builds pellets. We sell kind of 4 blends: a rooting blend, a bloom blend, a green blend, and then a kind of a holistic 444 all purpose. But we were selling that stuff at a home and garden show, and a lady walked by and she goes, "Hey, have you ever sold this into the oil and gas reclamation industry?" And I said, "No." Why? And she said, "Well, in the oil and gas industry, uh, we have a hard time because our job is to put the land back after industry has come in and drilled oil, and we have to put those well pads back to what it's like on the other side of the fence. And oftentimes, our hands are pretty tied as to what we can put in that soil, and the soil is often very admixed. There's very little soil function. There's no biology. It's been constantly sprayed and then seeded and then sprayed and then seeded. Um, and I was like, well, sure. I mean, we could try it out and sell some to you. And we did, and we sold a lot of it. And we didn't. It was totally by accident. So as a result, we started another company called Terra Preta, and that's what our main focus is. It's about restoring soil function in reclamation sites. Specifically, one of the more prevalent places we sell into is something called native prairie. And in North America, there's kind of in the center of the mass is native prairie, and there's very little of it left because we've turned it all into farmland. But native prairie is this giant mass of area that has its own ecosystem entirely. It's very long-lived perennials, very difficult to grow native prairie species. And a lot of the seeds and whatnot that they're putting into those sites are extremely expensive. Think $10,000 for a 50-pound bag expensive. So when those seeds don't germinate, it causes a big problem. I mean, it's really expensive. So our whole adage in life is just about restoring soil function, whether it's in the backyard garden, whether it's inside your house, or whether it's in an oil and gas lease site that they need a $10,000 bag of seed to grow in.
So what are some of the results that you're seeing either in those prairies or in like oil and gas field? Like what would be a prescription from or an order from these companies as they're trying to fix their damage?
So a lot of the times in these companies, they don't. It's funny. They don't realize they have a soil problem most of the time. They don't know what they don't know. So for us, they come to us and say, "Yes, I've got XYZ site. Nothing's growing. We're doing everything we can. We're even pumping conventional fert into it, and it's just not working." So for us, it's yes, you have lost the ability to have functioning soil. Functioning soil is a result of biological and chemical interactions. A lot of the chemical interactions that you're bringing the chemicals in aren't what you want. It's the biology that we want to build back up into the soil. So we have a Revive pellet. It's called Terra Preta Revive, and it's a culmination of alfalfa meal, camelina meal, canola meal, insect frass, um, rock phosphate, bone ash, worm castings, a whole plethora of biological and like kind of rock minerals, as well as plant matter, organic matter that we put in the pellet. And we prescribe it at 2,000 pounds an acre. And when they broadcast it and then either power harrow it, or we always say the best time to apply it is when the yellow iron is on site, like the big dozers. So when they put our pellets into that soil profile, what it allows them to do is get the biology moving. And when we get that biology moving in that soil profile, even in that dry, sandy soil, it allows for aggregation and flocculation of that soil. And then we can actually get plant roots to become plant roots. And they can then go through their life cycle and then reseed themselves. So what we're seeing places that have never grown plants before actually grow plants. And
Hmm.
that's the most important thing for these people, because how the oil and gas reclamation works in Alberta is that they have to apply for something called a reclamation certificate. And until they have been given that reclamation certificate, that's a liability on their balance sheet. And if they can't get that liability off their balance sheet, next thing you know, they've got 2,000 sites that are tying up their asset retirement obligation, and it can really start to pose a problem on growing your business. So it's
Hmm.
in their best interest to get rid of some of these sites, but there's not a lot of solutions in the market right now for it. So that's where
Hmm.
we have a lot of first mover advantage on that.
That's really unique. So let's talk about you rattled off a list of things that I'm pretty familiar with. Um, and I imagine just from working with those products before, it's quite the challenge to put it into a pellet. And for those who don't know what a pellet is, maybe if you could describe that to people that have no idea what a
Sure.
pellet is.
So a pellet, think about a wood pellet stove or a smoker, or yeah, like smoker pellets. That's what I mean when I say pellet. It's a 6 mil cylinder pellet of compressed um, ingredients. A lot of the times you see it in chicken feed or in livestock feed. That's what a pellet is. We just took it, instead of making pellets for feed, we just use pellets for soil. So a lot of the things that we use come out of this circular economy, and I spend a lot of my life looking for byproducts that are either unwanted or are looking for a second life. And then I essentially try to find ways to mix those ingredients with other ingredients so that they kind of work syntropically with each other. An example of that would be, so think about alfalfa meal, insect frass, and a rock phosphate of some sort. Well,
Mhm.
it would be very hard to get a rock phosphate into a pellet. You can get it into a granule by using a pan granulator quite easily, but in order to get the biology from the frass and the organic matter and the um, the kind of growth hormones from alfalfa meal, you have to be able to compress them together into one main feed source. So that's kind of the black magic that comes in the pelleting world. I've set the pellet mill on fire a lot because it's yeah because it's really hard to push stuff through. Where we're at now is we're able to we design and build all of our own pellet mill dies in house. That allows us to really control the compression ratio based on what the ingredient profile is and based on the hardness of the pellet that we want. When it comes to things like biochar or any kind of rock mineral, it can get really difficult to press them into a thing because there's no lignin left in them to be able to gelatinize and then create that pellet. So yeah,
So,
that's the story of my life. It's nonstop.
so what kind of are you adding some sort of bonding agent or moisture just naturally from whatever ingredients are being mixed in the mixer, so
Yeah.
that when you put it under pressure, they begin to bond and stick? Is that
Correct. So yeah, it is. We don't. I don't use pellet binders. There's a lot of pellet binders in the world. A lot of them are polymers, and I don't love polymers in soil. So we rely on natural binding agents that are embedded inside of the ingredients that we use. So things like alfalfa, things like canola meal, alfalfa meal, they have a fair amount of lignin left in them. So when
Mhm.
they heat up in that roller as they drop down on top of the spinning pellet die, and they're pressed in between the roller and the spinning pellet die, they um, it almost gelatinizes and creates the ability for it to heat up, stick together, and then come out and then quick cooling, and it stays together as a pellet.
Mhm.
So uh, we also, when we're doing something, take worm castings for instance. Worm castings is like 85% moisture content, so it makes a terrible pellet. You want your ingredient total to be about 15%, 12% moisture content. So we will desiccate in the mix by adding, a small amount of gypsum, which is 0% moisture, or rock phos or wollastonite, something that has both the ability to desiccate the mix, but also the ability to help with the soil. Everything needs to have more than one reason that they're there. It's not just to dry the pellet. It also has to be for, uh, gypsum, add calcium,
Right.
wollastonite, add silicon. Like we need to have all of the different things in order to make it happen.
Hmm. So one of the main advantages of the pellet is you talked earlier about this challenge of shipping weight because there's so much
Yeah.
water weight and in soils and any soil medium that may be shipped, and there's also like a bulk density where it's not compressed. Now you're shipping something that's extremely compressed with a higher carbon than something less compressed, no
Yeah.
oxygen in there. And so, and what else am I missing there? It's compressed, there's less water, and so the application rate is significantly less than if you were to be doing a bulk truck of
Yeah.
compost.
Also, the other thing, Luke, is that I believe in holistic feeding of soils. Um, Pellets, even when you apply a pellet to the soil profile, it has to go through a process to be able to expand out and then be consumed by biology in order to be converted into something that's plant available. So it's
Mhm.
very slow. So when you take a powder or a meal and you apply it to soil, hopefully it's not windy, hopefully it's not raining. Because if it is, you're going to either blow away or you're going to sheet mulch away. Pellets stick to the ground. When you get them in the profile, they expand out and then they create soil structure as that pellet expands. Now you're
Mhm.
creating air, water, and the ability for a plant root to come down and grow. From a growing or from a shipping perspective, I mean you nailed it. It's shipping soil is horrendous. It's very difficult. whether you're shipping it in bags or you're shipping it by the truckload, it's very tough. Shipping pellets is much easier. Um, we're able to put it in a small bag. So one of our 1 liter bags that we use, it will fertilize or feed the soil for about 35 to 40 square feet, because you don't need to put it everywhere. It's kind of about creating um, uh, micro environments all over, and then allowing it to net together with that mycorrhizal that forms as a result of.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, so pellets we've sold some just raw powder before, and especially to the reclamation industry, because it's all price orientated. And uh, I think that the operators liked the price, but they hated the fact that it's dusty, right? Like, I don't know if you've ever been around an alfalfa meal, like a big bag of alfalfa meal. It's not fun. Like, it's a terrible thing to breathe in. It's even worse when you mix it with, rock phos and feather meal, and the next thing you know, you're breathing stuff in that you don't want to breathe in. Whereas pellets, it's super clean. There's no
Mhm.
dust. There's no fines. It's just simply a pellet, and you put it in, and then it slowly feeds.
Right. Right. So, what level of rain event would it take to lift some of these pellets and like float them away,
A
or
lot.
do they stick? They stay down pretty well, and they
Yeah, they
don't
stay
they
down.
don't move.
Yeah. If it rains, the pellet will expand out, and it stays together as a pellet. I don't know if you've ever seen. Do you remember as a kid we used to have those things that it was like a little gummy or whatever, and you'd throw it in water and it would expand out, and next thing you know, it'd be like a foam
Mhm.
cowboy.
Mhm.
That's what it looks like when you
Mhm.
put pellets in water. So it takes time for that pellet to fully expand itself out, and then break down into a medium that would then blow away. 14 inches of rain like you had in where you were living, I mean, maybe that's a lot of rain, right?
Mhm.
Like, I mean, if you had the pellets in the profile, so let's say you were putting them down and you would either broad fork them in, or you at broad acre you power harrowed them in, or you diamond harrowed them in, and they're in that soil profile, they're not going anywhere. They're just
Mhm.
not.
Mhm.
There's just no event that's going to make it where they're going to erode away. Further to that, if there is with the amount of biology that's present in that pellet, if you take one of our bags of pellets and add some water and seal it back up and put it in the greenhouse, and you come back the next day, you got a party on your hands. Like, there is it is alive and well, and it's expanded out, and it looks like a bomb, and it feels like it's going to go off, because there's just so much biological life that's happening, and all that biology is doing is breaking it down.
Mhm.
So that it's that's why we say it's really important to get the pellet into that soil profile. Once it's in that soil profile, it just gets to go do its job, and that's basically what it is.
Mhm. What separates your guys' pellets versus other pellets in the marketplace, or a chicken pellet? Because there's chicken
Sure.
manure pellets readily
Yep.
available through the states. There's um, sheep wool. That's
Yeah.
that's
Yeah. Yeah.
something commonly pelleted for
Yeah.
water retention. What separates what you're working on?
Yeah. I'll get to the sheep wool in a second. I've got a lot of experience with sheep wool pellets. I love sheep wool, but it's certain regulatory bodies don't really allow me to use it anymore. Um, our pellets. So I love anything that's pelleted. So I have a hard time ever saying like what's better about ours. But the reason why ours are better is because I don't believe in monocrops. I don't believe in single ingredient anything. I think that it's very imperative, whether we're feeding our gut biome or whether we're feeding our soil biome, that we give it a plethora of things in order to consume. More diversity equals healthier plants, healthier crops, healthier people. So chicken manure pellets, amazing. It's a wonderful nitrogen pellet. But if they were only to just mix it with something, find whatever it is that you're
Uh-huh.
trying to do, then you can get kind of the best of all worlds, and you can start to feed a bunch of different things. So
Hmm.
in our all-purpose, we have 14 different ingredients in it, and
Hmm.
all 14 different ingredients all go to do different things. If you're going to have an all-purpose, it better do a lot of things. It's very similar to when you go eat you go out for dinner. Well, you don't want to just have a steak with nothing else. Your stomach will hurt. Or just only potatoes. If you only ate potatoes your whole life, it wouldn't, I'm not sure what that would look like for you, but I can't imagine that it would be great. So that's why it's all about growing diversity. And I've always been a huge adage to just multiple different things doing multiple different things that help multiple different things.
Hmm.
That's why our pellets are different. Sheep wool loves me some sheep wool. When I first started pelleting, uh, we used to go pick up the waste wool from all the sheep farmers around. Sheep's wool is a wonderful thing. It actually will, if you lay sheep wool pellets on top of the surface of your soil, it will uptake that atmospheric moisture, the dew in the air. So if you're in a really dry area, it'll pull the dew out of the air and then release it in your soil profile. It's also a 913 MPK. Now that's not nitrate nitrogen. It takes a while to get to that number for it to break down. But we always put sheep wool in our compost still. Unfortunately, due to organic certifications, we were unable to keep using it. It was also a real big pain in the butt because it would float to the surface of the mixing tank because it's wool, and then
Right.
all the heavy stuff would go down. So from a homogeny standpoint, it was really difficult to get it to mix in.
Hmm.
But I love the idea of using resources like that for building soil health. It's just my favorite thing in the world.
Hmm.
But that's why we use multiple things in our pellet.
I think one of the big advantages of a pellet is the ease of application. I mean, obviously you can just grab it out of the bag and just like broadcast it with your hand, but they
Yeah.
actually flow in standard like seed spreaders and cone
Yep.
spreaders for the back of a
Sure.
tractor. I think you've even sent me some video of the new drones applying pellets with drone application, and it spreads beautifully.
Correct.
Do each of your pellets have a different application rate on tons per acre? And if you were suggesting somebody in a home garden, um, can you break that down a little bit smaller for like a 2.5 foot bed by 100 foot long, like 250 square feet?
Yeah. So two different applications, two different businesses, and this is the problem in my life is that I'm constantly being pulled both ways. So from a drone applied pellet, which is what we've done a lot of, uh, open up the bottom chute and let her fly. It's just kind of how it goes, right? Like you want to get as much of that out as you can. From a cone spreader, we've even put it into our no-till drill and ran it down the tubes. It gets a little dicey sometimes because it will plug off your tubes,
Yeah.
which is I don't care, but if you're doing this commercially, you're going to care quick, and you're
Hmm.
going to be real mad at me. So I don't necessarily recommend doing that um,
Yeah.
because it's downtime. Um, but from a home gardener perspective on the Doug side, yeah, it's very simple. It's one bag, which is 1.6 pounds, goes to 30 square feet of your garden. And then you can take that all the way up. Now that's to get a full feeding.
Hmm.
If you don't necessarily have to go as heavy on it, but you can, right? And the other part too is that compared to like a conventional fertilizer, something that's blue that comes out of a plastic container, you can never overdo it, right? So we tried desperately. We put in 25,000 pounds per acre equivalent into one of our garden beds to see if it would burn plants, and we grouped our garlic was totally fine.
It was
And
probably
we
a lot
just
better than it was. It was pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's continually good. We haven't put pellets in that bed in 2.5 years. And it's totally, I mean, it grows the exact same as everything else that we put our pellets in. So it stays in the soil. So that's another part of this whole thing is that we've built a business that you don't necessarily want to use every year. You don't have to. What's the point?
Hmm.
Right. So it's not, once you build soil health, gardening gets really easy, right? You don't, as long as you're putting your compost in and you're really focusing on leaving living roots in the ground and watching for earthworms. And if you're growing really intensively, then yeah, you have to feed your soil, but you don't often have to do it every year. Like, it's less is way more when it comes to what we do and how we do things.
Huh. Well, I think we probably did a really good job of getting everyone fired up in the United States to go and buy some Doug garden pellets. However, the caveat is you can't if you live in the United States.
It's hard. We tried to ship some down to you, and it got flagged at the border because we need a U.S. Department of Agricultural veterinary permit because there's things like feather meal and fishbone meal in it. So that said, we are in the works of getting this, setting up a pellet mill down there, and 6 to 12 months, maybe 15 months, we'll be down in the United States, being able to grow 7 cuts of alfalfa with you, Luke.
Wonderful. Well, where do people maybe track with what you're doing and find you online?
Sure.
I know you're not like crazy active in it because you're doing all the dark arts of pelleting, all this pellets for saving the planet, one Canadian space at a time. But where do people find you?
So all of our socials are Grow Doug, GROWDOUG, Grow Doug. And growdoug.ca. We sell our Make Soil Living Again hats. We can send those to the United States until I get flagged on copyright from Trump. But I'm sure we'll see. But that's where you find us, and we've actually gotten quite a bit better. We have a great team of people that are helping with our socials now. It turns out that just because you're good at growing things and doing things on farm doesn't mean you're good at recording them.
There's that. Yeah,
it's weird. It's hard. It's normally I'm not clean cut, and it's a bit of a disaster. So, but yeah, Grow Doug, growdoug.ca, Grow Doug on all the socials, and just watch for us. We'll be in the States before you know it.
Yeah. Well, Lee, I just wanted to say thank you for your time. Thank you for what you're doing for the planet. I think as you share your story and people begin to share this rock that's been thrown in the pond, and this ripple effect is going to make a big difference. And as we continue to learn more and more about how we can grow bolero carrots in both Arizona and the northern reaches of Canada, I'm just excited to see kind of what the future looks like in soil health and really trying to make a big difference here. For those of you who don't know, you've been listening to the How I Grow This podcast, brought to you by Seedtime. Seedtime is a digital garden planner that helps you stay planned in your garden and stay on track, because when the pellet mill is on fire and you're trying to put that out and you're about to miss a window because you don't have the grace of all these windows, we can help keep you on track through integrated tasks. We can have journal, inventory, and all the new AI tools that are built directly in, so you can learn about companion planting and where to put stuff. And the newest feature that's coming out, how to build these garden blocks where you can actually year in over year out figure out exactly where stuff goes for the highest health of your soil. Make sure you check out and create a free calendar at seedtime.us. And thank you for listening. As always, like and subscribe to the How I Grow This podcast, and share it with a friend if you think this is going to be very, very helpful. Thank you guys so much. Lee, thanks again. And
thanks, Luke.
It's been a great episode. I'm really excited about releasing this one. I think people are going to be excited, and I do apologize for all you not able to buy this, but if you are in Canada, check it out. Awesome.
Thanks, guys.
We'll see you, Lee. And thanks for staying tuned all the way to the end. We're so excited that you're here, and that probably means that you enjoyed what you heard. You found some value in it. If you could, go and share this with somebody that you know. That really helps push it forward in the algorithm. Hit a like, a subscribe, hit a review. It makes all the difference for us. Thank you for listening to the How I Grow This podcast, and we are dedicated to bringing more of these stories to you to help you grow at the next level. We'll see you.